Boxing truth here. I had to talk about a potential fight between Anthony Joshua and Deontay Wilder. As Joshua's promoter Eddie Hearn says that it's being built up by the network Showtime in order to be a pay-per-view fight in the United States. So that means they're going to look to bring Joshua in the United States sooner rather than later, perhaps early as next year. Get Joshua's name more out there, have him have a couple of performances in the U.S., and then do the Deontay Wilder fight when it's marinated a little bit and the time is right. And also, Joshua will be the most prepared as possible, as he still has only 17 fights, half the fights Wilder has. And if that fight was to happen now, like Deontay Wilder, he's calling out Anthony Joshua, as most top heavyweights are doing, because Anthony Joshua is the money guy in the division. He's the guy that can provide a good payday, especially if you go over to the UK to fight him. So Wilder is calling for that showdown to happen sooner rather than later. And of course Wilder will want that fight now, because if he waits a year from now, Joshua will be more developed, more prepared, will have more fights under his belt, more experience. And Joshua's only getting better with each and every performance, and he's showing a lot more promise and potential than Deontay Wilder has ever shown throughout the progression of his career. So, of course, it's pretty obvious why Wilder will want that fight now. Take the fight now against this young lion who is still considered a prospect, only 17 fights, has a title, but he has yet to fight a top 10 opponent or guys. He's fought rated undefeated guys, but not world beaters. But I think Joshua's last opponent, Dominic Brazil, may be a tougher opponent now than what Wilder's fighting in his next fight in Chris Arreola, who's pretty much considered a faded heavyweight that's seen better days and has had pretty shitty performances in many recent fights, getting gifts decisions even. So I think Brazil would probably if would beat Arreola right now if they were to fight each other. If you take in Brazil's performance against Joshua, he showed toughness. He lost every round, got beaten down, but he might have had more in the tank compared to Arreola, since he's still a young, fresh guy. So I saw a video where it was a Sean Newton video. He was talking about he would consider Joshua a cherry pick for Deontay Wilder. Now, I'm not a big Deontay Wilder fan. I mean, I go in on him sometimes, because of the constant cherry picking. But I don't consider Joshua a cherry pick if he was to fight him later this year. In my opinion, I think Joshua is the best opponent Wilder's ever fought. If there was to fight, I would consider Joshua to be the most dangerous opponent in Wilder's career, because right now Joshua, I think, would beat Wilder's the best guy he beat in Berman Stavern. Right now, I would take Joshua over a Stavern or any other opponent Wilder has faced in his career. I think Joshua would whip all the asses, every one of Wilder's opponents. I think Joshua, I mean, he doesn't have the experience, very few fights, but man, I like what I'm seeing from the kid. That dude's got, I think he's got a lot of upside, a lot of potential. Very impressed with his technique, his combinations, his power. I just think he's better physically, technically, and just more dynamic, more accurate of a puncher, a much better boxer compared to a Wilder. Wilder will still have a puncher's chance, of course, and he's got double the fights, but obviously Wilder would want to take that fight now, so Joshua doesn't get any better, any more developed. But who would you take over Joshua right now in the top 10? Like, Who you think would beat Joshua in the top 10? I don't have the top 10 list in front of me for the heavyweight division. Hold on, let me check real quick. Who would you take over Joshua right now in the top 10? I think Fury would beat him right now. If there was a fight right now, I just think it's a little too soon for that fight. Klitschko, you know, that fight might be. It depends on who wins that fight, as it's been postponed. Povetkin over Joshua? Would you take Povetkin over Joshua? I think Joshua could beat Povetkin. I think he could beat Pulev. Luis Ortiz will be a dangerous fight, no doubt. I think Joshua could beat Joseph Parker, Malik Scott, Erkin Tepper. I think he beats the majority of the top 10 heavyweights. I'm looking at BoxRec list, so that's according to BoxRec. The only guy that I would pick with much confidence is Tyson Fury. And if Joshua Hearn were to take that fight next against Wilder, it would be a very interesting fight. I still would roll with Joshua in that fight, actually. I would have considered it a cherry pick. It's just Wilder being smart. Take that fight as early as possible so this kid doesn't get a lot better, because he's young. He's only 26. And he's only going to get better and much more seasoned, much better fighter a year from now. I don't think Wilder has much of a chance in a year from now. But he will have a good shot because of his experience, and double the fights he has, more rounds as a pro, and he has the punching power. So it will be an interesting fight if they were to fight next. But I still would roll with Joshua if they was to fight next. But it's not going to happen next. I really doubt it. They're going to build that fight up into a pay-per-view in the U.S. on Showtime, and then they most likely will fight next year. As I see Anthony Joshua, he's got options for his next fight. He may return in November or December, according to his promoter, Eddie Hearn. And he could fight. There's a few names he could fight. David Haye might be available at the end of the year if he goes through with the fight with Briggs in September. He could fight Joseph Parker. He could get rid of that mandatory defense before it's due. Or he could fight a domestic fight against David Price. And what will be a money fight, since David Price is a name in the UK. He's a heavyweight, an Olympian. So there's definitely options for Joshua's next fight. He could either take a voluntary or he could take a mandatory defense with Joseph Parker. I would hope Eddie Hearn goes with the Joseph Parker fight. I think Joshua beats Joseph Parker, but it'll be a good fight. It'll be an interesting fight, good test. Two young heavyweights, pretty much around the same amount of experience in fights. But I think one guy's a lot more talented, much stronger, bigger, faster, better, just a better physical specimen compared to a Parker, who's got hands for a heavyweight. But I'm more impressed with Joshua's technique and what I see from his fighting style, his abilities. I just think Joshua's a better fighter, just the bigger, stronger, faster than Joseph Parker. And the Wilder fight, Wilder definitely would want that fight next, but I doubt he's going to get it next. And in a year from now, I got Joshua trashing Deontay Wilder. I think Wilder is on the verge of being knocked out if he fights Joshua next year, or if he fights Fury before that. But they're interesting fights. It's fights that you're definitely going to tune in to watch. The Wilder-Joshua fight will most likely be built up to a pay-per-view in the U.S. And then we'll see what happens with Fury-Klitschko, as that's been postponed to the month of October. But y'all let me know what you think. Who you got in the Wilder-Fury fight if there was to fight next? Do you think Joshua's ready for Deontay Wilder right now? I think he's ready right now, but it's too soon for that fight because of the politics. But y'all let me know what y'all think. This is Boxing Truth. I'm out.